Hey everybody, it's Paul Ramsey, and I am joined today by Rhonda Waters, who is presenting at the 2017 NGH convention. Rhonda is going to be talking about delegating effectively in the multicultural, multigenerational 21st century. That's a big title, Rhonda. How'd you come up with that? That's a good one.
Well, sort of by reverse engineering, Paul. First of all, thanks for having me on the program to talk about this. I work with lots of business folk, and in the land before time, before I was a hypnotist, I actually did lots of business type trainings, and I was worked for the telephone company, that kind of thing.
Oh.
So I dealt with lots of people who were trying to manage other folk. And this is like the first time in history we've had 4 or 5 generations actually working together. So like when our parents came along or your grandparents came along, they worked with the same people who were in their neighborhood. They worked with their neighbors. They worked with people they knew. They had a similar background to those folk. So they didn't have the same kind of issues we might have today where, especially in a place like Boston or any really center, large college center, you have people from all over the world coming in to work. So you have every race, religion, color, ethnic in the area working, and they might be an employee or a client. Right. I've had lots of clients, multicultural clients, come in to see me, and we need to be able as professionals to help them as hypnotists, but also if you're a management person trying to figure out, well, why doesn't this person understand me? Or even people from our own ethnic or background groups, if they're 25 years old, I've had grown people in my office saying, why don't they do what I tell them? And I say, what did you tell them? And they said, I told them to do A, B, C. I said, did you teach them to do A, B, C? They ought to know. That's not how it goes. Right. They ought to know what the dress code is. They ought to know how to behave in a professional setting. None of these things actually occur to millennials, Gen X and Yers, or iGens, the young, even younger folk. They haven't got a clue why we don't want them texting during work hours. They don't know why we don't want them texting while they're driving. Okay, they know why we don't want them to do that, but they still do it. So helping people sort that part of the process out, like how then you can have that conversation with them. And this is something folk at our conventions can also be helpful. People familiar with NLP, the way we persuade each other, the way we talk to each other, the way we frame things, it makes a difference to some people, whether you tell them the third or fourth time, the way you tell them the third or fourth time you want them to do something, if you seem aggravated or irritated or what have you, that they shut down. So they may not even hear what you're saying, even though you might be trying to say, I'm a native-born New Englander. So we're not known to be friendly and abusive and huggy. So we, for us, a compliment is when we don't tell you screwed up something. There's no actual compliment. It's just we didn't say right. Screw up. So you're supposed to infer that it's okay. Whereas a lot of people, your generation and what have you, Paul, you're expecting somebody to say, hey, that was a good job, or, can I show you how to do something different? People in their, 50s and 60s are like, I didn't shoot him, so he should be all set. Yeah. That is not what we need to understand. So as professionals, that's how I kind of I saw a lot of my peers and other folk, and even some Gen X and Yers, because they might wind up supervising or working with people of older generations. They're like, well, I tried. He doesn't understand. I need him to fix this because they told us so nicely that we didn't actually catch the thing that they wanted us to fix.
I totally, before I was in the world of hypnotism, I was formally trained to be an English teacher, and I taught 10th grade English at a public school in Maine, and it was a pretty rural district. But I had friends who went right from our master's program right into like AmeriCorps, and they were, getting help with their student loans and stuff by doing 2 years of service. And some of them were going to inner cities. And I remember our mentor teachers in our class where we were still working on our master's at the time, they gave us this article and they sat down with us, and you could tell that they were doing this because it had come up from some of the sites saying, hey, you got to talk with your teachers about this. And it was breaking down how like white middle-class people have a language construction tendency when they wanted children to do something of just saying, hey, would you like to blah, 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 right? And that was their way of saying, please do this.
Yeah.
That when the students, these young students who grew up in that system would then go into an urban classroom and they would use it, the kids would go, no, I'm okay.
No, I don't really want to. I had a choice.
Right? And then they'd think that the kid was being disrespectful because they didn't know, but the kid was like, you asked, I'm just telling you.
Yeah,
like,
you should have just told me what you wanted. I'd have known then. You know, spotting this, and and a lot of management people, or even people like ourselves who may be running a small business, when they may not have a background in management. So your business grows to the size where you need somebody to help you, but you have to be able to explain to them what you want them to do in a way they can understand it.
Right.
And then you have to check and make sure. You can't assume anybody understands anything you said to them. You have to go back and make sure, okay, and then have them demonstrate they know what to do. But a lot of people are like, well, I told them what to do. They're a college graduate. They should know. And it's not what really happens. And then maintaining poise and calm and positivity. Because I will take on the blame and say, okay, I didn't understand that. We were not communicating effectively. So let's back up a little, and I'll walk you through it again till we can agree that this is what we need. So instead of saying, you screwed up, which for some of these Gen X and Y, they melt like a pansy on a hot day. They just fall out because they're not used to anyone correcting them. Right. Whereas we might say it's constructive criticism, which I don't agree actually exists. It's just criticism. Perfume on it, and figuring out how to, but we have to be able to deliver that. If you're delegating things, you have to be able to help this person understand sort of cause and effect. So if they're not delegating effectively, then the work you think they're doing isn't getting done right, or it's not being done to a standard that you want it done to, or in some cases, setting up a relationship where they feel they can share to you. So they're not just doing what you told them. They're actually understanding and interpreting and analyzing it and saying, oh, I understand that you want me to do this, but here's a way we could do it that might be better. How do you feel about this? Or can I do this the way I would like to do it, and not necessarily the way you formatted it? And being able to say to that person, well, show me your way and let's look at it. Instead of, because that's important for lots of people to feel they're part of the process. And it seems like a small thing, but if they feel like they're helping build a process, a lot of people are much more invested in it.
Yeah. Rhonda, I'm just fascinated because this is I've never seen a topic like this in all my years going to the convention. And so I just want to know, like, how did you come to our profession? Because you've got experiences in dealing with people that are bringing a different perspective. Tell me, like, how'd you get into hypnotism?
I was dragged, kicking, not really. I mean, it goes in a strange way. This is one of those weird thin threads. And the high school I went to, you could pick a project on anything you want. Now, this is in the land before time. They had oxen driving people to, no, I'm kidding. You could pick a subject, anything you wanted. Anything that was a topic in the biology textbook you could do. And they had one paragraph or two on hypnotism. So I didn't want to cut up, test subjects or whatever in biology, like some other people did. So I latched onto hypnosis. I did a little more research. I actually attempted to hypnotize a couple of my classmates. And one probably was hypnotized. The other one, not so sure about it. One of them actually quit smoking. Wow. It was, a thing. And I've used hypnosis myself. As a teenager, I had used it for pain reduction. I was burned in an accident as a child. And my mom didn't believe in pain medication for children. So, which I probably could have used the first 2 days. So by the third day, I had figured out how to, and I didn't know this, I learned how to hypnotize myself to relieve the pain. So I kind of started doing, those kind of things. And then I was working for the phone company. I worked for Verizon. I did regular telephone installation work originally. I worked Chelsea, East Boston, Winthrop. I went to people's homes. I installed telephone services. Wow. Regular person climbing the pole, crawling to the, sub-basements, whatever. That was, my thing. Then I got into management because they were talking about laying off the junior people. The junior people at that time of the phone company were 10 years of service. Wow. People wouldn't even talk to you till you had 15 years of working for the company. They're just like, I don't need to talk to you. You're a short timer. Move on. So I went to school. The phone company at that time had 100% tuition reimbursement. So I got a master's and a doctorate while working for the telephone company. And in that part of the process, I began, I've always been a teacher in some format. even if it was Sunday school. I've always been trying to help people learn how to gather and put together information and make it more useful to them. I didn't understand this at the time, but now I kind of know. So the way I sort of got into this subject and this idea of interest in this kind of thing was as an adult going to college and finding out that either I didn't understand my instructors, and some were more or less willing to explain things to me, and seeing in the workplace as new people came into the workplace, or in my case, I was like the first woman to work as in outside plant in the whole Northeast district. So if they say a woman was here, it had to be me. There was a gal here this morning, and immediately who it was. And I encourage any women who are watching. It was a great job. It pays tremendous. The benefits are huge. It's, for anybody who was interested in doing that kind of work, that the companies are always looking for outside plant people to do that kind of thing. But it let me see that there was a disconnection between leadership in organizations and the people actually doing the work. And it wasn't so much that they had crossed objectives or goals. Sometimes they didn't even know what the goals were, which is an issue. But people didn't communicate effectively, and partly because of generational issues. I mean, I don't know what my parents were thinking about in their time. I don't know what they would make. My parents both passed. I don't know what they would make of the selfies and, constant internet feedback or those kind of things. But management in a lot of companies is now they're also the people who are on their smartphone all day long. So they're doing the same thing, but they're not the managerial skills, the basic, we would say. What are you supposed to be doing during the time you're here? What time are you doing it? How do I know that it's done? Those kinds of things. A lot of companies, we've made assumptions about people, and they're maybe not accurate. On the other hand, some very effective Gen X and Yers who, even with very limited leadership, could handle almost anything you throw at them. But you have to manage them and encourage them in slightly different ways. Right. And you can't yell at them because, as they say, they will wilt on you. And they're just not used to, like you said, somebody saying, would you like to take care of this objective, or would you like to take care of this Excel spreadsheet this afternoon? That is in order to go do your Excel spreadsheet. Yeah. You put it under a blanket for some people. But if you said, finish your Excel spreadsheet this afternoon by 3:00, they'd be like, and that might not be the reaction you wanted. So like many people, in Hypnotist now, we came to it from someplace else. And your background as an English teacher, I'm sure, informs your skills and abilities as a hypnotist. Right. Because you're going to bring a whole different language framing, structure of sentences, those kind of things. That visualization. I mean, I think some people who come from maybe more technical fields might have a slightly different take on it, but they all have to learn, that visualization, or creating a visualization for the other person. And this is something that, as a hypnotist for business folk, I also think it's an enhancement for our field, is that we can talk to executives or business people and explain that it's not that something's wrong, it's just different. Yeah.
And so this is what I love about this, that you're tackling this topic at the convention is, I mean, you can frame this topic very much from like a management perspective or a coworker perspective, but I mean, this is just communication, right? And so, I mean, the potential for how it can make you more effective with clients, to be able to assess clients who come in and get a sense of, I always think of, I did some training with Tony Robbins and Chloe Madonis on coaching. And one of their big first things is always learn the client's worldview. Like figure out the client's model of the world and how you can step into that model and talk from that same perspective, And so that's totally what I'm thinking about is just assess people and figure out how they talk about themselves in the world they live in, and then match it, right? Match it and help them, have it so that they can feel ready to create the change that they want. I love this. I think it's great. Tell me more about, you're choosing a word, I assume, purposefully, the word delegate, and why that word is an important part of all this.
Delegation is one of these age-old things, one of those things I learned in graduate school, age-old things about managing anything. And I believe we're all multi-million-dollar managers of our own lives. So I want people to understand that delegation is important. I'm a big fan of Brian Tracy's, the ABCDEs of prioritization. And whenever I get off track or I find myself having 19 things to do in a 24-hour day, I remember if I go back to his ABCDEs of delegation, I can offload the crap that I shouldn't have taken on to begin with the magic phrase, sorry, I'm already booked. Sometimes I don't say I'm sorry. I'm just, because I'm not, maybe not sorry, but to say, already booked that time. And then if I want to do it, I'll suggest an alternative date. If I don't want to do it, I won't make a suggestion for an alternative.
Right.
I'll just keep moving there. Like,
that's awesome.
I don't give them the opening. But the delegation function is a normal, everyday thing. And I think people are afraid of it. They think delegation comes from on high and it's a horrible thing. But if you don't delegate things, I see this, you may see this with your clients as well, parents who are doing all the work for their children. Really? Children don't, 17, 18 years old, don't know how to make their own breakfast, make their own bed, do their own laundry. So, and I'm working with parents and trying to figure out their stressors. We're going through the things they're stressed about, and they'll say things like, well, I have a husband or a wife and 3 children, and everybody eats different meals, and I have to make different things at different times of the day and whatnot, plus work full time, 60 hours a week. And I'm like, you understand that you're doing the work of 4 people. And they'll say, how old are your children? They'll say, well, 15, 16, 17. I said, it's a 17-year-old, can't light the stove. What is that? But that's usually an internal issue associated with the parent where they don't want to delegate that. They feel like either it means their child is growing up, which is the objective of parents. There's a gal named Connie Podesta. She's a PhD, became a PhD as an adult. And she talks about the difference between people who were raised in the 70s and 80s. She studied the parents for her doctoral thesis. She studied the parents of, say, my generation, 70s and 80s people. And what my parents wanted from me was for me to be a valued member of society, to get a decent job, to do good in the world, those kind of things. She does the same study again in the 1990s and 2000s, and parents wanted. Any idea what parents wanted for their children?
Oh, I'm a 80s, 90s kid. So it's funny. Maybe I'm on the back end of that generational thing. Cause I always felt it was the same thing, was to get educated, get a good job, and be a responsible member of society. It seemed like at some point it shifted to more like just like fierce. I always thought of it as like that, just keeping them safe. But I don't know. You tell me.
She's the number one item for those folks, making their children happy.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want your child, the most important thing in your life is your child to be happy, which says something about your life, but never mind. Then you treat them differently than, you want them to get a job, learn to do various things. Like, our grandparents' generation, if you said, my job has no meaning in the world, my grandfather would look at me like I had lost my mind.
Right.
They pay you. You go there.
Yeah.
Do your stuff.
Yeah.
It's nothing. What's it got to do with anything? Half the jobs in the world would never get done if you had to draw meaning from them. Right. We're human beings, but we can draw meaning anywhere we want. But the part where I try to help clients figure out that they've created this situation where they're stressed. They're losing, their hair's falling out, they can't sleep at night, all these other kind of things. They come in to see me, usually for something totally different. But it's the stress they've built up. And I'm sure you find this too. They come in for one thing, maybe to stop smoking, or maybe for weight loss. But it's the stress that they've got built up from these other areas that we get to kind of, as hypnotists, kind of peel apart and figure out, well, what's driving that behavior? Yes. And how can we help? I say that I help them try to lift the trailer hitch and drive off. It's the baggage car is still full of baggage. Yeah. But you just left it where it was and you drove off. You don't have to dig through it and chase through it and pull all the other stuff apart. However, you got to be here. But for parents to realize that delegation is how you and I learned how to take care of stuff. Have my parents take me to the bank and show me how to set up a savings account. Right. Learning to change a tire, learn, small things, GB things that as an adult, if you have some clue about, you can kind of, move ahead your new sets of learning. But if young people never learn how to do some of the basic things, like even planning their own schedule. A lot of parents, they have all day long, they have activities for their children to do all day long, but the child didn't make the schedule. They have supervised play. Yeah. Supervised play is important, but letting children play amongst themselves teaches different set of skills.
Right.
So we get these people in the workplace now who've never made their own schedule, never had to figure out what they need to wear, never had to iron their own clothes,
Yeah.
All these other kind of things that as leaders or bosses, sometimes we have to backtrack our way through to help them sort out that if you want to be successful in this area, or if you're a client-facing person, you have to look a certain way, kind of. But if also helping people who are used to delegating, helping them understand that the old methods may not work anymore. Okay, and they never really did, in a way. I mean, some people managed, we used to call it the theory X and Y 100 years ago. It's one of the things I was taught a little bit in graduate school, which is basically the carrot or the stick.
Oh, okay.
So either some people work only because you whip them,
Yep.
And other people work only if you rub on them. And usually it's somewhere in between.
Right.
Right. And do you care how they did the work? Some people, bosses, apparently only ever learned the beating you, or the rubbing on you,
Yeah.
and I frankly don't, I'm just like, what do you want me to do? I'm going to go do it. I don't require either one,
Yeah.
and so, which confused some bosses, that, they said, you never yell at the employees in your work group. And I'm like, why would I do that? Well, then you have to, that's how you get them to do things. No, I handed them a little note in the morning that said, please do this. I'll be back at noontime to check on you. But there's no yelling. Right. Right. There's no yelling. That's not very effective. Well, but my productivity, 10 points more than anybody else's department. So how can you say it's not effective?
Yeah.
But that's a normal part of the process with delegation and management. So, I'm sure you see these things in your practice. And that's where I think I can help some of the other hypnotists draw that connection, is that they might think, well, delegation is about business. I don't really do that. But the people that come in to see us, they have those issues.
Yes.
Overbooked, overscheduled. I had a client who actually made fill out a schedule for her for like 3 days. As a regular part of things I try to get people who are stressed to do, is to find the gaps in their day where they could do some breathing exercises, or do some, visualization or those kind of things. And this gal brought into me her list of things to do for that day. That began at 5:30 in the morning. She's talking to people on the phone on her way to work, and ended at about 11 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And I said, when is it you expect you're going to get your schoolwork done? She was actually in graduate school and was falling behind and failing. She wanted to know why she was failing. And the reason was she had to clear her schedule. She had, and I literally had to role play with her. I didn't have to, but I figured it was actually, it's a quicker way to do things, is to say, repeat after me.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that today.
Yeah.
They've never said no to anybody.
Right.
They don't know how to say no. Or if you have a menu, same thing with people managing food, delegating preparation of food, or delegating the person in the restaurant. Now, when I was a kid, they just gave you whatever they wanted. However the food was prepared is how you got it. Now you say, one, pinch of salt, a tablespoon of vegetable oil, not olive oil. You can ask for anything you want.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, they do it in the back room. But you have to be able to say that, or put no sauce on the steak.
Yep.
I just want the steak. None of the marsala. I'm sure or put the marsala in a little cup to the side.
Yep.
And I'll put it on.
Yep.
Those kind of things. And that, it seemed like simple managerial things, but delegation shouldn't be something we're afraid of, because you have to, if you're going to follow things like Brian Tracy's ABCD prioritization thing. D is delegation, and E is eliminate, because we're also doing a bunch of things that are legacy projects, we might say, because I always used to do this, so I'm going to keep doing this, even though I've added 10 more things on. So the part where you say, okay, I'm going to stop doing that anymore.
Right.
And actually, or delegate that thing to the children. Give all your work to, household. Once your children are 14, 15 years old, they should be doing all of their own work for themselves.
Yeah.
They should be able to do basic things around the house. People from other countries, their children come here and they can do laundry and do this and that.
Right.
Kids in America wear diapers till they're 3 years old, 3, 4 years old. Well, kids in foreign countries don't have disposable diapers in some of the countries.
Right.
So they're potty trained before they're like a year and a half old.
Yeah.
Because there are no special diapers.
Yeah. That's interesting stuff. Yeah. Listen, you guys, this is important. Again, this could benefit you if you have a practice that you'd like to see it run more effectively, and you've got more than one hypnotist under your roof. And an office manager and that kind of stuff. This is going to help with that kind of stuff. But at the minimum, if you're like me, I'm a practice of one, but these are the issues that you see come up with clients over and over and over again. They come to you for X, and X isn't really the problem. X is a symptom, and these problems are what is really making X happen in the first place. So, I mean, this is the stuff. This is the stuff to look at and figure out and learn how to assess more quickly and to take some steps on. This is great. Rhonda, that's it. I don't want you to go any further. I want people to come and spend their time with you. Don't give away any more of this gold. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. I'll see you again soon, I hope.
If people do want to learn more about you and what you do, what's a great way for them to find you in the world?
They can find me on my phone number, which is 617-266-3057, or on my webpage, which is Mutare Hypnosis, which is MUTARE hypnosis.com.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much for making time for me.
Hey, great. A lot of fun with you.
Thanks. All right. We'll see you in August.
Yes.
All right. Bye-bye.